Lillian from Human Resources knocked on my office door. "Hey, you forgot to initial the new non-disclosure agreement." I signed the paper, handed it back, and went right back to translating legal jargon into code triggers for the $300 million merger between Nexus Tech Solutions and Aerotech Group. It was the massive deal they kept announcing at every town hall, but no one else actually understood. I had spent 12 years at Nexus Tech Solutions. I was not part of the ping-pong table crowd or the people writing wiki articles about culture. I was the one who made sure the merger protocols passed Securities and Exchange Commission tests, building the quiet integration lattice between Aerotech's creaking system and our backend that had been duct-taped through 5 chief technology officers. I did the critical work they did not even know they needed until it broke at 2 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Eve. That morning I had 3 monitors open, 2 half-drunk coffees cold on my desk, and a yellow sticky note that said, "Ask legal about Clause 9. I had circled it in angry red ink. Behind me the office hummed with startup bravado. Project managers swaggered around, developers argued about whether data structures were emotional enough, and one intern played a song on loop. In the middle of that noise, I sat there alone in my corner reviewing the final compliance protocols. My name, Walter Beckett, was on the federal documentation as third-party signatory and neutral witness. I was the bridge. No one else had that clearance, which took 6 months of red tape and background checks to acquire. They gave me the power years ago and forgot they did. I liked being invisible. There is freedom in building quietly while the loud people drown in buzzwords. I just wanted my systems clean, my documentation tight, and my coffee uninterrupted. Only a few people noticed me, like Alan Taylor in Aerotech's compliance office. Everyone else saw me as just Walter in integration. Quiet, 48 years old, overdressed and underappreciated. Then Julian Vance arrived. But let us not jump ahead. That day, I logged into the clearance system to file my final checklist. The Aerotech deal was supposed to close in 72 hours. My sign-off was the last step. Everything was ready. Except, I paused. Something felt wrong. I could not put my finger on it yet. Not exactly. But I opened my personal folder, marked contingency, and double-checked the clause I had highlighted months ago, just in case. Because here is the thing no one at Nexus Tech Solutions ever understood. I did not build systems for them. I built systems in spite of them. Because I knew someday they would trip over their own arrogance and try to throw someone like me under the bus. And I was not going under. Not without a fuse lit and a locked door behind me. They say when a company wants to screw you quietly, they do it on a Wednesday morning with free bagels. That is exactly how it started. The email came at 9:13 in the morning. All hands mandatory, 10 o'clock sharp. Executive team introduction plus organization updates. Do not miss it. That is Human Resources speak for someone new is in charge and heads are going to roll. Enthie Julian Vance, the new chief operating officer. Mid-40s, wearing a suit that cost more than my car. He had startup cult energy, calling himself a fixer. I knew from minute one we were broken in his eyes. He spoke for 42 minutes, dropping words like agility, modernization, and legacy tech rot. People clapped, while I just sipped my coffee and fixed a broken data bridge. 3 hours later, Lillian knocked again. This time, she did not bring paper. She brought 2 people from Human Resources, one with a clipboard and one with dead eyes. "Walter, can we speak privately?" Translation: pack your bags. They led me into a side room like I was being told I had a terminal illness. No eye contact, no water, just a manila envelope slid across the table like a ransom note. Julian Vance did not even bother showing up. The letter inside was half buzzwords, half redundancy, shifting core competencies. "Your role no longer aligns with our strategic vision." I was still reading when the clipboard lady said, "You will need to return your badge and laptop before 3 o'clock this afternoon." The other one added, "Security has already been informed." I stood up, walked to the door, and paused. Something flickered just past the corner of my eye. On the front desk where they kept lost keys and half-dead office plants was a printed photo of my face. In thick red marker, someone had scribbled, "Do not let him back on the floor." Not employee, not Walter. Just a threat taped to laminate. It hit me in the gut like a sucker punch. I had trained their last 3 chief technology officers. I had kept their biggest deal alive with duct tape and caffeine. I had missed family dinners, birthdays, and anniversaries to babysit their server migrations, and now I was being treated like a liability. I did not cry. That would have been giving them a gift. I took a deep breath, walked back to my desk, packed my things into a cardboard box. My palms were cold, my heart was hammering. Everyone around me avoided eye contact like I had a contagious disease. As my assistant Toby mouthed, "I am so sorry," from across the floor. I gave him a nod and a half smile. Then I did two things. First, I handed Lillian my badge. No scene, no speech. Just a quiet goodbye, and the soft click of a lanyard dropped on the desk. Second, I stepped outside, sat in my car, and unlocked my phone. I opened my secure Vault app, accessed the encrypted key store, and I deleted one key. Not a password, not a file, but a key store entry tied to my personal clearance certificate used in every Aerotech integration handshake. Without it, the system could not verify identity for the third-party sign-off. Without it, the merger could not close. Without me, they were holding a live grenade with no pin. I did not smile. I just drove away. I did not even take my coat off when I got home. I just stood in the doorway staring at the keys in my hand like they might dissolve if I blinked wrong. The house was quiet, too quiet. No Slack pings, no emails. No sudden urgent questions followed by 3 hours of unpaid labor. Just the ticking of the kitchen clock and the faint hum of the refrigerator. The cardboard box of my office life sat on the kitchen table like a dead weight. A mug that said I void warranties, a half-used notebook full of scribbled VPN tunnels and margin notes, and a tin of mints I kept for sugar crashes during late-night system tests. All of it felt alien now, like I had been dropped out of orbit and landed in a miniature display of my own burnout. I went straight to the hallway closet. Past the winter coats, behind the broken printer I swore I would fix, was an old fireproof file box. I dragged it out, popped the metal locks, and flipped through folders labeled in my own neat handwriting. Legal, clearance, protocols, red flag. Then I pulled out the folder marked contingency. I had prepared it 2 years ago, not because I was paranoid, but because I paid attention. You do not sit in on merger calls for 12 months, listen to executives lie about redundancy planning, and not start preparing for the moment they pretend you are optional. The folder was thick, too thick for someone who was supposedly legacy tech rot. I flipped past the organization charts, the platform architecture, and the Securities and Exchange Commission correspondence, finding what I was looking for: the original Aerotech integration protocol checklist. My name was printed at the bottom of every page as the certified third-party liaison and neutral clearance authority. I flipped to the last 2 pages. Clause 9C, termination of named liaison without formal substitution and recertification voids compliance status and suspends the legal standing of acquisition protocol. In plain English, if they fired me without replacing me with someone who passed the same security clearance and finished the checklist, the merger became a $300 million legal paperweight. No, Walter, no deal. I sat down slowly, the edges of the paper cutting into my hands like it knew what it was worth. I had never told anyone about this clause because no one ever asked. Most of them did not even read the merger documents. They just handed me coffee and assumed I would keep the train moving while they stood on the tracks posing for photos. Well, not anymore. I was not crying. That part of me had already gone cold in the Human Resources office when I saw my photo taped to a desk like I was a threat. This was not grief. This was precision. They did not just fire me. They detonated their own timeline. And the worst part was that they had no idea yet. They were probably in a conference room right now, high-fiving over my exit and printing a new organization chart with Julian Vance's smirking face at the very top. I flipped the protocol to the final sign-off line. My signature was supposed to go there. The ink was never going to touch it now. The checklist was not just a formality. It was a federal requirement under Title 17, United States Code Section 106, and Title 35, United States Code Section 271. It tied into compliance databases, data privacy acknowledgments, international banking approvals, and every buried landmine the lawyers assured us would not be a problem as long as I stayed on board. I leaned back, let the paper rest on my lap, and exhaled through my nose. This was not revenge. This was not sabotage. This was mechanics. You fire the keystone, and the arch collapses. It is basic physics. I grabbed my old personal laptop from the closet, powered it up, and opened the encrypted drive I had not touched in 6 months. Inside were backup logs, key registries, and liaison handshake protocols. Everything they would now scramble to reconstruct from scratch, with a guy named Sean from IT who still could not find the correct VPN on his third day. I checked the logs. I verified that the deletion I made from my phone earlier had propagated to the federal handshake server. It was time-stamped, locked, and completely irrevocable. They had no idea yet, but that was about to change. I sipped cold coffee from my office mug. Tomorrow morning, Aerotech would notice something was missing and the screaming would begin. I knew they would try to bypass the handshake protocols by using a temporary certification. But under the federal regulations, any manual override requires a neutral witness signature, and since they had disabled my access, they could not even generate the override request. They had effectively locked themselves out of their own vault and thrown the key into a furnace. I closed my laptop, walked over to the window, and watched the streetlights flicker on one by one. For the first time in 12 years, I did not have an active queue of server alerts waiting for me. I did not have a manager texting me at midnight about a database lag. I was completely disconnected, and yet I had never been more plugged into their fate. Let them enjoy their quiet night, because tomorrow the foundation would begin to crack. The phone call took less than 4 minutes. I did not rehearse it, did not pace around the kitchen or scribble bullet points like I usually did before big corporate meetings. I just sat there at my dining table, the merger folder open beside a bowl of cereal I had stopped eating hours ago, and dialed the number I knew by heart, Aerotech Compliance. "This is Alan Taylor." His voice was chipper, too chipper for a man standing on the edge of a $300 million pit. "Hi, Alan," I said, my voice calm and flat. "This is Walter Beckett." There was a brief pause. Papers shuffled. A mouse clicked. "Oh, hey, Walter. I was just looking at your final checklist. Actually, we were expecting your last sign-off sometime this week. Are you calling to confirm that went through?" I leaned back in my chair, eyes tracing the sunlight pooling across the carpet. "Not exactly. Just wanted to check on something in the process flow. See if there were any updates on your end before I submit anything further." Another pause. This one was longer. "Wait, you have not submitted it?" "No." "Okay, but why?" His voice changed. The professional smile dropped off a cliff. "They terminated me yesterday." Silence, like all the air had suddenly left the phone line. "I am sorry." "What?" "No worries. It happens. Just thought you might want that information before proceeding. If you need formal notice, I can have my attorney draft something." He sounded like he was flipping through documents frantically, looking for any reference that this might be a prank or a miscommunication. "They fired you, but you are the named liaison. Your credentials are hardwired into the process. Your identification is listed in the acquisition binder. Interagency compliance flags are tied to your profile. We cannot just switch you out. The federal authorities require a neutral clearance liaison to verify the security handshakes between the two networks. If we do not have your digital signature, the entire pipeline is flagged as non-compliant. That means we cannot move any user data or proprietary software across state lines under the current integration charter. It is a total shutdown of the transfer protocols." "That is correct," I replied quietly. "The federal guidelines are very strict about the separation of data during the transition phase. Without my active security token, the automated compliance servers will reject any handshake attempt from the Nexus Tech network. The protocols will assume a security breach is in progress and immediately isolate the databases." "We cannot bypass it," Alan asked, his voice rising in pitch. "There must be a manual override protocol. We are talking about a $300 million deal here. The board members are scheduled to sign the final paperwork on Friday morning. The only manual override requires my physical security token and my private key, which I deleted from my phone when I was escorted out of the building. And since my network account is now disabled, those credentials cannot be regenerated without a full federal audit, which takes at least 6 months. So no, Alan, you cannot bypass it." I let him sit with that. The silence was heavy, filled with the realization of the administrative disaster that had just been dropped in his lap. "I will send you the formal notice shortly," I added. Wouldn't want any ambiguity about my current status. And with that, I hung up. No flair, no dramatics. Just a clean cut straight through the spine of their acquisition timeline. Then I called my lawyer. Graham, bless him, did not even ask me why until page 3 of the termination letter. By then, he was already drafting a 2-sentence statement for Aerotech's legal team. Walter Beckett no longer represents Nexus Tech Solutions in any formal or advisory capacity, effective immediately. The moment they received it, the brakes screeched. Aerotech halted all final signatures, froze the merger account, and paused outbound fund authorizations and escrow triggers. I got a system alert 5 minutes later on my personal monitoring dashboard. Secure access handshake attempt failed, key mismatch. Yeah, that is going to keep happening, boys. Then I did something slightly petty. I opened my phone and scrolled to my old assistant's number. Toby, a sweet kid, still green, but sharp enough to know when the ground was starting to crack under his feet, I texted him. They might want to check Clause 9C. Just a thought. Hope you are doing okay. No emoji, no signature, just that. 3 minutes later he responded, What the hell is Clause 9C? Everyone is freaking out. Did you hear something? The development leads are running around the floor, and the chief financial officer just ran into Julian Vance's office and slammed the door. The whole floor is vibrating. I did not answer. I let him stew in it. It was not cruelty. It was an education. The kind you only get when you watch the ice split beneath you and realize the lifeboats are already gone. I stared out the window after that. The sun had dipped behind the neighbor's roof. I felt weightless. Not giddy, not smug. Just like something had shifted tectonically, and I was finally standing where I was supposed to be. They had not just handed me leverage. They had gift-wrapped it and delivered it to my front door. I did not need to shout. I did not need revenge. I was the consequence, and now they were going to learn what it costs to cut your foundation loose and pretend the house will not collapse. By Friday morning, the storm clouds were parked squarely over Nexus Tech Solutions headquarters, and no one had packed an umbrella. The merger signing was scheduled for 10 o'clock in the morning. A full executive suite circus, polished shoes, power ties, and legal briefs lined up like dominoes. Aerotech's delegation was supposed to roll in, flash some $1 million smiles, and press pen to paper. But 10 o'clock came and went. No Aerotech, no delegation, no chief legal officer, no signatures. Just silence. At 10:12, Julian Vance stood at the front of the executive conference room, one hand in his pocket, the other nervously clicking a pen back and forth. Well, he finally said, attempting a smirk. You know how these legacy firms are. Slow, paper-heavy. We will fix it internally. He repeated that last part like a prayer. We will fix it internally. Except the problem was already internal, because 3 floors down, someone had started whispering about Clause 9C. Toby had mentioned the clause to a junior analyst, who promptly went searching through the company's shared drive, found a copy of the original merger protocol draft I had uploaded months ago, and sent a screenshot to a colleague in the legal department. By 11:37, it was on Slack. By noon, the panic had legs. The general counsel stormed out of his office, yelling for someone to find the original signatory logs. Human Resources was in a meltdown. Compliance froze 3 pending invoices. Legal started asking who signed off on Walter's termination. The merger lead tried calling Aerotech directly and got stonewalled with a polite but pointed response. We are currently reviewing internal documentation irregularities. Please wait for our updates. At 10 o'clock in the evening, my phone rang. A locked number. I declined it. Then it rang again. This time it was the Nexus Tech Chief Financial Officer. I declined it. The third time he left a voicemail. I let it roll. He sounded like someone trying not to sound like they were losing their mind. Walter, hi. Look, I know this is not ideal, but we just had a bit of a hiccup with the signing today, and I was wondering if we could connect briefly just to clarify some details on the compliance chain. Nothing major, you know, dotting I's, crossing T's. Call me. I played it twice, then deleted it. They thought this was a hiccup. They still did not get it. It was a lung collapse. I opened my laptop and checked the Federal Liaison Registry again. My name was still listed, no substitution filed, no recertification request submitted, no alternate key in place. Without that key, Aerotech's automated signature sequence could not pass the compliance gate. No handshake, no merger, no exceptions. The more they panicked, the calmer I got. It was like watching a fire you did not set, but you did remove the batteries from the smoke alarm. The kind of quiet power that does not ask for applause, it just exists. I got another text from Toby. They are freaking out. Legal is blaming IT is blaming the legal division. Julian Vance says, it is a temporary credentialing bug. This is insane. The developers are saying that if the handshake is not completed by Monday morning, the compliance protocols will permanently lock the data migration directories. If that happens, the integration work of the last 6 months will be completely wiped out to prevent a data breach. I sent a single neutral text back. Check the documentation. Let them interpret it however they wanted. I made a grilled cheese sandwich, watched television, and answered a few emails for my other consulting gig, the one I had kept on the side quietly for the last 6 months, just in case. At 4:30 in the afternoon, a mass calendar invite went out to the entire company, emergency all-hands meeting. The subject line said, realignment and roadmap discussion. Translation, damage control. That room was about to fill with buzzwords and sweat. I was not even on the guest list anymore, but I was watching the ripples spread on their own. By Saturday afternoon, the panic had spilled over onto social media. A prominent tech reporter posted a thread on a social network mentioning that a major integration roadblock had suspended the $300 million deal between Nexus Tech and Aerotech. The stock market analysts were already writing reports about the potential failure of the transaction, and the internal Slack channels at Nexus Tech were filled with employees asking if their jobs were safe. I sat on my porch, drank my tea, and watched the sunset. The house was quiet, and my mind was completely at peace. I was no longer the employee who had to stay up all night to fix their mistakes. I was the silent observer of their self-inflicted downfall. On Sunday morning, the crisis escalated further. Julian Vance tried to hire an outside cybersecurity firm to force a manual override on the compliance server. He authorized a massive emergency payment, but the consultant spent 6 hours reviewing the system before giving him the bad news. They explained that since the security clearance was tied to a federal neutral witness protocol, any attempt to bypass the handshake without a certified liaison would trigger a federal data privacy investigation under Title 17. The consultants refused to touch the network, warning Julian that they could be held legally liable for corporate espionage. By Sunday evening, the general counsel was openly discussing the termination of Julian's contract. The executive group chat, which usually buzzed with motivational slogans and project updates, went completely silent. Everyone knew that without Walter Beckett, the $300 million deal was dead, and the company was facing a ruinous lawsuit from Aerotech for breach of merger covenants. At 9 o'clock on Monday morning, the email landed. The subject line was cold and bureaucratic. Pending merger immediate compliance review required. The body was even colder. Due to the unplanned termination of the listed third-party liaison without replacement, Aerotech Group is formally pausing all executional aspects of the acquisition. Compliance obligations under Section 4.7 and Clause 9C are currently unmet. The transaction is suspended indefinitely. 4 lines. No room for argument, no spin. The kind of message that makes chief financial officers drop their coffee and human resources representatives start dry heaving. And me? I was sitting at my kitchen table in sweatpants, pouring almond milk into my cereal, watching it happen. The buzz on professional networking sites, the finance blogs catching wind of the delay. A post from someone at Aerotech read, "Always verify your bridges before you burn them." Graham, my lawyer, sent off the final documentation 30 minutes later. The letter was short but lethal. Walter Beckett has no further professional, contractual, or advisory obligations to Nexus Tech Solutions, effective retroactively to the date of his termination. All compliance duties tied to the Aerotech transaction have ceased. The minute that letter hit Aerotech's compliance inbox, the door slammed shut. Legally and structurally, they could not just hire someone new and pick up where I left off. The deal was not a document they could forward. It was a hand-stitched parachute, and I had been the one sewing the cords. They ripped me out, and now they were falling with no drag. Later that afternoon, I registered Quiet Seal LLC. It took 11 minutes. Just like that, Walter Beckett was no longer an employee. I was an entity, a vendor, a firewall with a mailing address and a licensing clause. My phone stayed silent most of the day, but I knew they were talking. I could feel the boardroom tremors because now the whispers were starting. Did Walter build the original data bridge? Was he acting as a vendor? No, I was not, but they wanted to believe I was, because otherwise they would have to face the fact that I was just a salaried employee they ignored until I became the keystone holding up their entire castle. The betrayal did not sting anymore. That was over. Now I just felt focused. Somewhere downtown, Julian Vance was probably sweating through his shirt in a glass conference room, while someone pointed at Clause 9C projected on the wall. And me, I was adding a new tagline to my website draft. Quiet Seal LLC, compliance without compromise. It ended not with a press release, but with a whimper. Aerotech officially pulled out on Thursday morning. The statement was brief. Due to unresolvable compliance gaps, Aerotech Group has terminated its acquisition proceedings with Nexus Tech Solutions. By noon, Nexus Tech's stock was in freefall. $300 million in projected value gone like a magician's rabbit. The chief financial officer resigned, delivering the usual speech about family time. I never re-entered the building, but I did answer the door for a courier on Friday morning. He handed me a square velvet box. Inside, nestled in silk, was a note in careful handwriting. Next time they will know who built the bridge. Richard Miller, Chief Executive Officer, Aerotech Group. I set it on my bookshelf right between the merger binders and the Quiet Seal operating agreement. Then I walked back to my new desk. Quiet Seal LLC had just signed its third client. One of them was Nexus Tech. They did not want to, but they had no other choice. They were licensing one of the old integrations I had architected. Now it was critical, and I controlled the access keys. I charged them 4 times my original rate. There were no complaints because this time they knew. As the sun spilled through the blinds, I wrapped my fingers around a warm cup of coffee. A quiet morning, no meetings, no fire drills, just clarity. My phone buzzed, a new email with the subject, respectfully requesting your terms. I smiled, took a slow sip and let it sit a moment, let the world run. I was not chasing anymore. I was the terms. Big thanks for watching, you seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. We must remember that value is not defined by those who speak the loudest in meetings, but by those who build the quiet systems that keep the lights on. They thought my silence was weakness, but it was just preparation. When the dust settles and they are forced to rebuild, they will realize that the most expensive lesson is the one you have to buy twice. Until then, keep your systems clean, your keys secure, and never let anyone make you feel optional. The legal battle over the next few days was intense but short. The board members of Nexus Tech Solutions realized they had no leverage. They tried to threaten a lawsuit against Quiet Seal LLC for tortious interference, but Graham quickly shut that down. He reminded their legal team that Walter had simply been fired, and deleting a personal security key upon termination was standard safety protocol. In fact, keeping the key active after his badge was revoked would have been a violation of federal compliance laws. The board's own documentation showed they had authorized the termination without checking the compliance integration requirements. It was a case of pure executive negligence. Faced with the threat of a shareholder lawsuit led by Grant Henderson and the other major investors, the board voted to approve the licensing contract with Quiet Seal LLC. They had no other choice. They paid the retainer, agreed to the hourly rate, and signed the licensing agreement without modifying a single word.